You may say watching this, well, Mr. Gibbs, that's a sad case, and feel sorry for the family, what they experienced in terms of a loss. But yeah, I think I heard somewhere that, dying like that isn't all that bad, that it's kind of a quiet, almost a peaceful drifting off. Could I beg to differ just a little, my friend? I was in the room with Mary Schindler the last time she would see her daughter alive. We didn't know it was the last time, but at this point you have to imagine kind of a frenzied scene outside. There's hundreds of news media, all the major networks there with trucks and towers, hundreds of protesters, police and sharpshooters all around. The road is closed, and so it's fairly chaotic. And Mary just said, "David, would you walk over with me?" And I knew what that meant. Would you just help me get through the crowd? And I was on the very short list of who could actually go in and see Terri. We made our way through the crowd, multiple searches, and please understand, at this hospice, all the protocols were off. Mary Schindler was prohibited from doing anything to comfort her daughter. What you might consider just an ordinary act of wiping her brow or even putting ice chips on her tongue, it was prohibited. Mary Schindler could do nothing to help her daughter. There would be an armed police officer behind her at all times to make sure that indeed she didn't in any respect do what would be in the heart of every mother to do, to reach out and to provide comfort and love to a daughter. As we made our way down the hallway into the room where we had visited Terri before, the first thing that just absolutely startled me was the noise. It almost sounded like a machine or something had broken, and as we made our way in, it dawned on me that that was Terri's breathing. It had gone into what they call the death pant. When you breathe in and you breathe out, and it's generally a pretty quiet experience. You don't generally hear someone breathing, but when you start to die, it becomes gaspy and raspy, and it was extremely loud as Terri Schiavo was now very close to death. As we walked up, and as I would walk past the head of her bed down to the foot and look up at her, it was a very tragic sight. All the health, all the life was now out of her face. Many of you will remember some of the images. There were one or two that were shown over and over again. Terri following a balloon, or Terri smiling at her mother. And you could tell from those images that Terri Schiavo, for her disability, was an attractive individual. Her complexion, her hair, it was well kept. All the health, all the life is now completely out of her face. The only way to really describe it would be to look at it as skeletal, like you took a skeleton and stretched skin or even stretched saran wrap or something real thin. All the crevices in the cheekbone and in the jawline are now protruding. All the pulp, all the flesh, all the fat is out of her face. Underneath her eyes are big dark circles. It looked for all the world like you punched her. Her skin looked to me almost sunburned. Again, it made sense with all the drying that was going on. As the moisture was out, it was red, it was flaky. Her lips were parched. I had seen parched lips before. I had never seen a completely parched mouth, where a tongue and a roof of the mouth were completely flaking and peeling from lack of moisture. As Mary Schindler would lean over Terri, as I'd watched her do many times before, this dear mother was going through what I believe no mother should ever have to go through. As she began to cry, and as she began to pray, and as she began to talk to Terri, it would kind of mix between the three. "Oh God, please don't let my daughter feel this." And then just sob and, "Terri, honey, it's your mom. I love you, sweetie. Don't fight it, honey. It's okay. You'll be with God soon. Please, God, please don't let Terri suffer." As I stood at the foot of that bed, watching this mother go through this tragic moment. Looking behind her, there's the police officer to make sure that she doesn't do what's in the heart of any mother to do, to help her own daughter. I can now see some of Mary's tears running down what I'll call the dry channels of Terri's cheeks. I then looked over on the other side of the bed, and it always struck me as ironic. On one hand, they'd call her a vegetable, but they knew she felt pain. And there was the morphine that was there to alleviate the horrific death that would occur when her heart would ultimately give out from the dehydration. I'll tell you, my friend, as I stood at the foot of that bed, it shook my convictions to the core. I'd grown up in a country that I love. I had a good family, a mom and a dad that told me to love America, to respect the military, to obey the police. And I'm proud to be an American. But as I stood at the foot of that bed, I thought, this isn't what our founding fathers intended. This isn't why our Constitution was written. This isn't why soldiers have gone overseas and given their lives so that we could stand here and kill an innocent, disabled woman. I don't know how long we were in the room. We were on a 24-hour clock at this point, and time begins to get a little surreal. Probably 20, 30 minutes. Mary Schindler would turn and walk out into the hallway and never go back. She said, I just can't do it. It's killing me to see my daughter like that. As I would join her in the hallway, Mary would take my arm for just a minute to stabilize. We were timed to get out. We couldn't dally about. But as she was blotting the tears from her eyes and waiting for the mob that would greet us both outside, I'll never forget what Mary said to me. She said, David, I'm no lawyer and I'm no doctor. But she said, what I don't understand, why do they have to kill my little girl? I said, Mary, you know I'm a lawyer and I'm no doctor. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. And my friend, whether you're watching this and your perspective is one of sympathy for the parents, or maybe your perspective in watching this is you feel more inclined towards the position of the husband, that is a haunting question that was through this whole case. When you have a mom, when you have a dad who are willing to take care of the daughter, why did we have to insist that she die? You know, that was what the international media focused on. This case was covered worldwide. I did interviews in every continent around the world. And they asked questions like, Mr. Gibbs, by what moral authority does America let this girl die? And I think you can agree with me, there really is no moral authority to do what we did to Terri Schiavo.